Okay, so now we're back with working on our low poly character model. So we've got a basic idea of what the general shape of her head and face might be. We need to do a few more things to try to make sure that we've got like a good sense of the volume and all that. But in general, I think we're doing okay so far. So let's go ahead and start actually making the bridging details to bring all the pieces together for the base shape of her head. Then we'll do the symmetry and take a look at that. Then we'll start working on like the hair, and then get to the clothes and the torso and all that kind of stuff. So should be fun. All right, so let's go ahead and first take a look at where we can start kind of bridging gaps. And one thing that might be a good idea is that we could take all of the different parts that we've created for the face. So like the lips, the head, nose, eyes, ear, etc. And let's just merge those all together. So we can go to Mesh, Combine, and so that way we can then start bridging elements more easily. And I think the first things that I definitely want to bridge are the parts connecting the nose and the eye. Because those are actually fairly straightforward pieces to bridge. So now we can bridge like literally bridging, right? So we can select each of these faces here that we know we were set up properly. That we can select each of these faces here, and we can go ahead and select Edit Mesh Bridge and then Options. I want to make sure the divisions are 0, and then that way I can get like a base pass here of a connecting tissue, and then I can start just nudging and shifting this a bit to make sure that it's creating more a shape that's consistent with what I was expecting. So like for example here, I want to generally just be making this a little bit softer so it doesn't have like too many harsh lines. I think I'm probably gonna grab that piece there too. Okay, and so then we know that this is also going to have to bridge and also kind of encircle the different parts of the eye. So like first off, I know I'm going to grab each of these. I want to be careful because I don't want I want to make sure that I have as many concentric rings as I can for the purpose of animation. So I'm going to try to make sure that I keep these divisions following the shape of the eye for as far as I can. So that's because in the long run, when you animate a character, it's much better to have that character animate while following a consistent edge flow, so that if the character is, say, squinting their eyes or something like that, that you can see that squint is happening along a natural topology rather than kind of an inaccurate shape. So you don't want to see like weird pinches where a polygon just doesn't make sense, and you would have to just add detail to the model to actually make it work. That's not ideal. So I'm just trying to make sure that it keeps kind of a smooth flow. I'm going to target weld this one vert here. So I'm going to go to Mesh, Target Weld. Oop. Didn't mean to have that selected. So just target welded that vert there. Shift this a little bit. And I think that we're at the point here where we can start. Accidentally tried to pull one of my start menu items. Okay, and I think that we're at the point now where we can actually start maybe pulling from the nose section, because it looks like that works reasonably well. But let's go ahead and also make sure that we're getting the top part of the eye here first. So I'm going to grab each of these edges here, extrude those up. Obviously, I can use the target weld, mesh tools, target weld, and then I can also start positioning these, because this is essentially what's going to be creating the impression of her brow, the shape of her brow. So we need to make sure that they're kind of extruding or moving, shifting a little bit outward, and then softening as they get further towards the back of her eye. And I think that these verts actually need to slide back as well. Yeah, so they start kind of following the contour. And then I think we'll probably do the same thing one more time. I'm going to extrude these edges, shift, drag. But this time it's actually starting to create the actual shape of her brow. So I can select verts, and quickly go to mesh tools, target weld, weld that one down. We can shift these a little bit. And yeah, I think we're doing okay here. And obviously, as we go through the process of looking at this, we're just going to keep tweaking. I would probably do more tweaking when I wasn't doing this for the purpose of trying to finish a video fairly promptly. So we just want to be mindful of those kinds of considerations. Just like make sure as you're going, you're looking at the shape and making sure that it's matching what is consistent for this character's face and just the general dimensions. Okay, so then here it looks like we're at a point where we can start, I can say target weld this vert into here, and we know we have a decent amount of topology here, but I may want to shift these so that they're a little more evenly spaced. And we also want to know that I like and need to make sure that these follow the shape of her head, which is a little bit moving outward here. Now, in general, it's usually a good idea for low poly characters to not follow all of the edge loops all the way up the head, so that if you have a set of edge loops that seem to generally be doing a good job for the face itself, chances are that those edge loops will not persist all the way through to the back of the head, especially in a situation with a character like this who doesn't even actually have a visible back of her head. So now let's see. Okay. So we could just say, like, let's say, for example, I could grab all of these edges here that are at the top of the brow here, and I could extrude them all the way up to the top of the head. And I can say, okay, now I need to figure out exactly what I need to do to get the head looking how it needs to look. So I can start utilizing these edges to sort of loosely make the shape of the top of the head so that I know where that's going to be positioned. So I can say, like, for example, I can drag this one up here. We can start kind of just kind of looking at roughly what we think the shape of her head is going to be. I think these look a little tall, actually. She probably doesn't have a... huge separation between her head and her hair, but some maybe enough. So this may be actually a little bit more than we want, because we don't want to extend these unreasonably far. So let's go ahead and see if we can kind of tweak this a bit. Okay. In this case, I think these might be pretty okay for this purpose. I don't think that we're suffering too much here. So what I can do is I can start adding in a couple of divisions really quick. So I can add in like an insert edge loop here and one here. And then we can start shaping what we've got so that it more closely matches the other kind of anchor points that we've already defined. And obviously there's a little bit of like tweakage here. So I'm going to go ahead and use a target weld. So I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Target Weld. I'm going to target weld this, and this. And then we can tell obviously that there's some issue with the overall curvature, but it's not terribly set up. So we just need to make sure these things kind of work. And then we're probably going to go in and we're going to add some additional divisions just to make sure that everything looks good. Okay. So for right now, I'm not going to go too crazy with subdivisions, but I do think there's probably a good case for... we can actually mess with another option, which may or may not work, but if you go to the options for the Mesh Tools Insert Edge Loop tool, you can select Insert with Edge Flow, and we can actually make quick divisions in the shape of our head, for example, that somewhat follow the shape of the curvature that we're making with the surrounding edges, and that could actually be pretty neat. So we may find out we have too many edges here, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment. So let's go ahead and we're going to take these edges here. Make sure you if you do use the Insert Edge Loop tool second time, that you make sure that that's the setting that you want to use in the future, or that you change that setting, because otherwise it will default to doing that. So, okay. Here we go. There we are. All right, we're basically just kind of like doing the same general type of thing. We're extruding, moving things down, and sort of rotate them if that's easier. Obviously, if we scale, we can kind of reduce the dissimilarity between different edges, and that can sometimes be helpful. So if we were to terminate edges, I think we might go over that at some point. It's not. I don't think it's actually a huge priority right now. So let's see. So if I go ahead and do that. Actually, it's already kind of getting partway where I might want it. Since we've got that insert with edge flow turned on. So yeah, so okay, so then we what we can do is we can go ahead and we can start target welding. So make sure we're selecting vertex. We don't have too much stuff. Actually, kind of these ones that are close, it sort of doesn't matter which one I target weld to which, because they're all pretty close. Okay, all right. And then obviously we gotta clean up the shape here, because we don't want her to look like she has some like major cranial defects or something. So we want to like soften the shape and transitions. There are some options that we could utilize, like for example, we could use average vertices to try to just like soften out the relationships a little bit, and that kind of works. I'm not usually a big fan of doing too much stuff that's too automatic. And we can sometimes do that to make like small tweaks at the end, but it usually doesn't work super great for just like the iterative process of making the core shape what we need it to be. So I often don't recommend it. It's one of those things of like, you can spend more time tweaking something that automatically did a bunch of stuff wrong rather than just like manually making edits that are are just like better edits. Okay, and actually, so I'm going to take this vert and I'm going to target weld that one actually to the corner of the ear here, and then we'll make the edges that are necessary to kind of bridge the transition into the ear in a little bit. So I actually think we may actually have too many edges at the top of the head, but we'll resolve that here in a bit. So okay, so let's go ahead and get back to merging face elements together. So I know that roughly I want to try to follow the flow of the nose, and I have kind of the minimum number of nose edges that I might imagine. So I'm going to go ahead and really quickly extrude while holding down Shift, Shift drag, and Shift drag. And then that'll give me, you know, obviously I'm going to need to clean this up, but I know that I can then immediately weld these verts together. So I can select all of these, and they're close enough that I can go ahead and select merge to center, merge to center, merge to center, merge to center. And I think what we may be finding here is that we actually have a couple of edges going up this way that would actually make sense to merge into the other edges. That's like, so for example, this one here, I could actually merge with this one. So I can go to Mesh, Edit Mesh, Merge to Center. I don't think I can actually really safely do that. Actually, no, I don't think so. I don't think I can do that there. There's too much of a separation. So, okay. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking these parts of the face, and I need to make sure that I'm nudging them in the right directions. So in this case, it looks like there's a good number of these that need to shift closer to the head. So I can click on one vert, shift double click to select all the kind of surrounding verts. If I click on this vert and then shift double click to a non-adjacent vert, I can actually grab all the verts between them. So I can click on this vert, shift double click there. That's one thing, but if I shift double click and see, actually, it looks like I can't follow it. It's because it's on the edge. Okay, it's on the outside edge. So I'm going to actually just do the outside edge bit a little bit more manually. But then what we want to make sure that we do as well with these verts is that as we're structuring the face, we do kind of want to be bringing these down so that they start being usable to merge into the mouth without having like a total discontinuity between them. So okay, so we got a basic idea of what's going on here. And again, I'm doing this in the perspective view because at this point we're doing a lot of things that can be hard to fully glean from the side orthographic views, because these are largely related to the actual like shape and contour of the face. So we gotta make sure that we're looking at it more in the 3D view than we would otherwise. Hopefully I'm not talking too quietly. I kind of just going through the motions of the process, so hopefully everybody is able to follow me. Okay, so all right, and then so what we haven't done yet is we haven't really like merged these verts into the lips here. So let's kind of see where we can best do that, and I'm going to try to add in a few edge loops to make sure that we're building a nicer shape. And actually, because of insert with edge flow is actually a pretty helpful thing in this case, I'm actually going to leave that on for right now. So usually the easiest thing to do is to start extruding out the edges that are part of the most specifically grounded shape. So I can go ahead and grab this edge, shift double click this edge. I can pull these verts straight up. I can reposition them because I know I need to keep following the contour of the face. Then I can do the same thing here. I can grab these edges along the bottom. I can extrude those out. And then I know I'm going to want to merge this vert, or weld this vert to the corner. So this is there's still probably way too few edge loops here, so I want to just make sure on the underside here that I've got a few of those. Mainly the idea is that you want to make sure that you have concentric rings around the mouth, the eyes, the other pieces that are heavily utilized for animation, and then basically you want to make all the other edges somewhat subservient to those edges. So I'm not focusing too much on like kind of the nose and the cheek bit right this second, because I'm trying to make sure that I have as many concentric rings as possible around the mouth. So if I shift, by the way, what I did a second ago is if I click on this edge, shift, double click, then I can continue down here and shift, double click, and I can automatically grab like all the line connecting to here, the line connecting to here. And then I can also extrude out by using the scale tool. So that works reasonably well. So, okay, so I have a basic idea of what's going on here. I know that based on what we're looking at here, that these lip faces are actually they're all specifically for her kind of pouty lips. So I'm actually going to quickly grab those, and I'm going to extrude out like an additional edge by holding down shift and dragging. And then I can soften these a little bit, and this might be a situation where I would actually use average vertices or something like that. I just want to make sure that I have a little bit more of like a clear distinction for where her lips are, because as we make the other edges and concentric rings around it, we don't want the lips themselves to get lost. So, but I do need to actually delete the inside faces here that I created as a result of that. So I just got to be a little bit careful about that. Okay. All right. And yeah, maybe these are a little much on this end here, so I can tweak that. Okay. Cool. By the way, a lot of this is just basically like going through the process of just explaining like what I'm doing. So hopefully this is not incredibly boring. I don't always know exactly what to say while I'm just engaged in like a long process. So I'm going to go ahead and start welding these into the face, and then seeing what I need to add or tweak to get the shape that I need. So make sure I have my verts deselected. Go to target weld, and I'm going to target weld these verts. Looks like roughly. Well, it's a little hard to position these because they try to assume that you don't want to weld verts that are very dissimilar in shape from each other or positioning. Okay, so we have a little bit of that. Okay, and then that's obvious now. First of all, I can see some places where I need to tweak the shape, because a lot of times, generally, you have a little bit of like a recess right under your nose. I want to make sure that these look good on the various axes. Also make sure that I'm going to need to try to keep those close. Okay, so alrighty. Actually, okay, that's actually kind of a good point. I just noticed that actually it would probably make more sense actually to well, no, I think that's okay. I'll get these in here. And then I'm going to definitely have to have another edge loop here, so I'm going to go to Insert Edge Loop Tools, Insert Edge Loop. I'm going to connect that, roughly there. Then I know I can kind of position the verts there. I just snapped those verts there, so I probably want to go to Merge to Center to make sure that they're actually all attached. So I think her cheek is probably extending a bit far out. So I'm going to try to make a subtle, small shift there. Just because I can tell that her cheek is pretty round versus where the other parts of her face appear to be according to the template that we're working with. So let's see. So this may just be about kind of positioning, sliding these in here. So this is one of the reasons that I kind of like a low poly modeling workflow for stuff like this. Is it actually if you're starting with reasonably low poly details, you can get the overall shape pretty quickly, and then it's all about just basically going through, adjusting, tweaking, and refining to get more of what you want. And so once you've got everything kind of roughly where it overall should be, it becomes much easier to go through and actually make additional details and shapes. So I think that in this case, because we've got a lot of these edges kind of continuing off of the nose, I think what we need to start doing here is we need to start merging verts down towards the chin, and we need to start repositioning some of these verts so that they follow the right flow. So I'm going to go ahead, Mesh Tools, Target Weld. Oh, I always forget to do that. Make sure you don't have a vert selected. So I'm going to slide this one down here, and this will be kind of the anchor of like the area from her lip back to her chin. So we got to make sure that we're positioning those where we should. I think her chin's going to end up coming out a little bit because I think this is a little tight. Grab these edges here, shift double click, get a little bit of like a contour shift there. Okay, and so then there we can kind of start sliding these mid verts down to get more of like the flow of her face here. Now, this is an interesting kind of process because I think that everybody probably does these things a tiny bit differently as far as where the positioning of verts goes for like different parts of the main face. I think the general rule, the thing that you're trying to watch out for, is like a relatively smooth, clean topology with a lot of concentric circles around pieces that open or close or widen or contract, and that those are basically the kind of main considerations that you have when you're working on a face. I'm sure that the way that I do this, for example, is a little bit different than the way another artist might do this. So I just I try to focus on having that kind of core grounding principle, and then knowing that that's what I'm refining as I'm working towards my end result. And so yeah, I think that she does definitely have look like she has a little bit of like a puffy cheek or something, but that could be something that I could actually improve with some averaging later. But for the most part, I want to try to do as much of that as I can manually. And you'll notice that we have some faceted edges here. I haven't really done a smoothing group or anything on that yet, and then it's probably good that I haven't, because it gives us the ability to have a little more control over what we're doing. So, okay. So let's see. I think that actually this could be a situation where I could actually end up kind of overriding some of what we already had here. So if I grab all of this kind of chin detail and yeah, I think that actually that probably makes the most sense rather than trying to make all the tiny tweaks. So I'm going to go ahead and delete a few of these faces here. And I'm going to start shaping this chin to match more tightly. And this is where the 3D view becomes really, really helpful, is because I get an idea of like where the contour or shape of the overall chin is actually progressing. Because I want to make sure that it's smooth in general going across each of the axes, but that it also isn't extending too far out to essentially be useful. So I can actually target weld these verts. Mesh tools, target weld. Each of these, yeah. And then we can take a look here, obviously, at our side views. And I think that what we're basically trying to follow is some equivalent of it's going to end up roughly around here. But we're going to have to add some additional edges just to make sure it's following the right shape. So I'm going to actually pull this one back a little bit. And I'm going to add one edge for right now, going through here. Yeah, I'm actually kind of liking the insert following edge flow. It's actually been kind of nice. It's been sort of a good addition. So okay, so I can get a little bit of the bump in the chin. Then obviously I have these verts here, and I can do a pretty easy, like I can do maybe a merge to center. By the way, this and the car modeling process are both a little bit similar in that we focus primarily on a fairly rudimentary set of tools. Like, we're not using insanely complicated processes to try to get this stuff happening. We're just trying to generally go for fundamentals. So there's a lot of pieces that we definitely want to make sure that we have in place. Let's go ahead and grab all of these, and I'm going to hit 0, 0, or just hit 0 on X really quick. I'm just going to taper this this chin section in a little bit. So yeah, so basically, I mean, what is important to note is that a lot of this stuff is just pretty foundational, right? It's about the overall design of a character using fairly straightforward processes. We're not using any crazy elaborate tools. Like this is I didn't, in this case I did it without even using like curves or anything like that, because that ended up just not being necessary in this case. I mean, we could have done that potentially if we wanted to, but I think most of the time when you're working on something that's more involved, that's a more complicated shape or a more complicated detail, you're really not trying to make some sort of gratuitous tool usage. You're not trying to go with making like the most advanced version of like Maya utilization possible. Generally what you're doing is you're doing a lot of hand tweaking, and I think that the best analogy that I could give is that I know a lot of people who do and I think that this actually a point, by the way, here where I'm looking at the chin, I think I just have to kind of break continuity a bit between the two views to make sure that I'm getting this right, because I don't want her to have like a giant chin because of some sort of choice we made for the side view. Because actually I think that actually might be pretty much correct anyway. It's like she's got a little bit of the like flesh underneath her chin, but it's not super low. So yeah. So anyway, I think the analogy that I would give is that I know a lot of people who do editing of images in Photoshop, and I think a lot of what they do generally is doing hand painting of like masks and layer effects and things like that, and it's not like there's like a button that they can press. Like a lot of people who use Photoshop a little bit less professionally will often do something like they will use the filters a lot, and so they'll like apply a general filter, and so filters might be kind of neat. By the way, I'm going to extrude the chin here so that we can get a little bit of an underside. Actually, maybe use the move tool so we can get a little bit of like under jaw detail. It's like filters are a neat thing to use, and they can do a lot of stuff really quickly, but they're generally not that good for professional work because you don't have enough control over what's actually happening with them. So if I were trying to make a bunch of specific edits to a Photoshop file, for example, it would be a very bad idea for me to go about that by using a bunch of filters, because then there's a possibility that maybe I could use the right filters and that they could just do everything that I need, but there's also a good possibility that they wouldn't, and then I would be left with basically nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and I have this whole section of the face here. I need to start bridging this stuff together. So I'm going to hold down the shift key with the scale tool. I'm going to extrude all of these. So anyway, the point that I'm making is that there's a time and place for using a lot of really crazy advanced tools, but in Photoshop, most of the time what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making masks and making manual edits. And so similarly, when you're working on like characters in Maya, you're probably going to be doing a lot more like making edges and moving and nudging verts around than you are going to be making some sort of crazy advanced tool chain work for that process. So okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna merge these verts together, merge center, that's fine. So I want to make some little tweaks here. Like I said, I'm probably not going to tweak this to 100% the same level that I would if I had like 26 hours to do this because I want to make sure that these tutorials are brief enough that they can be useful. So let's see here. All right, so then what we need to do is we know we have to have a couple more details here on the ear to get all that stuff working. So I'm going to go ahead and actually start merging in there. So yeah, let's actually go ahead and use what we've currently got here to kind of merge into the ear, and then we'll add more divisions if we need them. So okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mesh tools, target weld, select verts. You can click off with the target welds tool selected to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and, okay, so we got that. Maybe I can merge these in. I think that's actually probably a little extreme. Probably need to add another division into the ear. That seems okay. Actually, that's nice that we have the insert with edge flow, because it kind of gets us a little bit of the way there. Yeah. I'm gonna tweak this a bit. All right. So I'm going to have to add additional subdivisions here so that this works as intended. But let's go to mesh tools. Now we can target weld that. Oh, keep doing that. Target weld that. And then I can grab each of these verts that are kind of at the top here. I'm going to scale these in, and I'm just going to leave those kind of right about there for a second. And then I got to make sure that I'm positioning these where I can merge them appropriately to the ear. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab this edge, 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 and this edge, but I think I'm going to leave that last one there. I'm going to switch to the scale tool, and I'm going to scale those in so that I get a little bit of, like, basically the inside piece of the ear. And then I'm going to have to go through, and I'm actually going to have to kind of position this so that they roughly do what I need to do. So, okay. So I'm going to go to target weld, make sure I got my verts selected, and target weld that one. Let's see. Actually, I think I need to actually make a bridge there. Select edge, edit mesh. Well, oh, I see this. Those are not quite matching yet. Okay. Okay, yeah, actually, you know what, I'm gonna need to delete that face. And actually, I think in this case right here, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to make an append polygon here. So I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Append Polygon. I'm going to click on this edge here, then click on this edge, hit Enter. So that means I'll have kind of like a triangle there that I can work with. So I've got to kind of figure out exactly how I'm handling this part with the ear, and I probably need to be merging some of these together because I don't want to have like a huge number of additional divisions in like the head or anything. So fortunately, ears tend to be details that don't need to animate too much, so that we can do a certain amount with that, knowing that we have a little bit more flexibility. So okay, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and add an edge loop going through the middle here. Then I also think I need to add at least just one edge loop here, one edge loop here, maybe one around here. And we can quickly go through the head. We can tweak the positions a bit, so I can say make these look a little bit more streamlined, a little more evenly spaced. I guess maybe I can grab these. Nudge, nudge, nudge. Okay. Boop, boop. And do the same bit here. And this is not exactly ideal, but I think that I'm going to basically end up merging some of these verts down so that they create a few triangles. But I think that, like, since we're doing this essentially behind where the hair is, I don't think it's too big of a deal to do that. So okay. And I think this way we have a little bit to work with, and then we can kind of make modifications where we need to. Okay, so let's see. So okay, so buttons. All right, I think I want to have another edge, another face here, but I think I'm going to do that with Append Polygon as well. So I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Append Polygon. I'm going to click on this edge, click on this edge, so that I get kind of a triangle face there. And I'm actually going to cut the other section. I'm going to select this vert, right click, shift right click, connect to components. Then I'm going to cut that face off, and then basically I want to see roughly like where I'm putting these so that they have a good transition into the ear. And so okay, and what we're looking at here is that I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. Verts, and I'm going to be merging a bunch of these additional verts from the side of the head into those. So I'm going to like grab a chunk of these, merge to center, grab a chunk of these, hopefully, yeah, okay. Merge to center. This is the part that I don't love, but grab a couple of these, merge to center, grab a couple of these, merge to center. Okay, and then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start target welding these, and then I'm going to do the same thing here because I know that actually, okay, so this is there's one there, one there, one there, and then this one is pretty close, and then these two are pretty close. So I'm going to, basically I'm just going to try to optimize this so that I don't have to like create a bunch of additional edges. So click off on the target weld. All right, merge this down, merge this down, merge this here, merge this here, merge this here, merge this here. Let's see. I'm going to merge this one down to here, this one down to here, this one down to here, this one to here, and then to there. Okay. Now, that's not really like the prettiest thing on the planet, but I think in this case, we're doing okay. I would probably want to go and clean that up a little bit, but I also want to make sure we get to the rest of the content. So, because in general, you don't actually have to have a lot of deformation capability there. So let's go ahead and say, like, okay, we're going to quickly take a look at this to see where we're at, because I think we need to make some small tweaks on the chin. Okay. Nothing too super crazy. All right. But actually, overall, that's looking pretty decent. So, okay. So I think the last bit before I wrap up this this video is let's quickly go through and symmetry this head so that we have two sides of the head, and then we can take a look and see how much editing we need to do with that. And I think for right now, I probably won't do a whole lot of editing before moving on to like the hair and the body and all that stuff. So, okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to hit the insert key. I'm going to move the pivot, hold down the V key to snap it to my border edges. Hit the insert key again. You can also hold down the D key or tap the D key to do that. I just double checked to make sure that my edges appear to all be on the direct side here, or right in the middle. But if I grab all those verts, I can just drag a box selection, type in 0 on X, make sure that that's good. Then I know I won't have to do any additional cleanup later. So I can go ahead and I can grab this face here. I can go to Edit, Duplicate Special, Options. For right now, I'm going to create an instance. And I'm going to scale it by -1 on X. And then we've got our face here. So I'm going to actually just, like, I personally just, for the sake of speed, I'm going to ignore the fact that this is slightly off, because it looks like actually basically what happened here is that the chin is a little farther down here and a little higher up here. So if we kind of rotated the head, we could make some small tweaks and we could get that to work. Yeah, so in general, I'm not super worried about that. Mainly what I'm going to be worried about now is just making sure that this face is actually consistent the way that it's intended to be built. And that will just require a little bit of additional iteration and feedback. So let me go ahead and, since we have a little bit of a milestone of progress, I'm going to go to Edit, Delete All by Type History. I'm going to go to my character base mat. I'm going to turn the transparency off. I'm going to take a look at what the shape of the face looks like. And obviously I can see that there's some things that aren't exactly how I want them to be. So like I, for example, could grab a few of these verts here, and I could adjust them. I'm going to go ahead and let's take a look at actually using average vertices. So if I go to Edit Mesh, Average Vertices, it says that there's a smoothing amount associated with that, and I can like actually I can just increase the iterations or reduce the iterations, and we could take little sections of the face and we could select them, and we could like basically use average vertices to smooth out the look of the face a little bit. So I might maybe do that a little bit, like maybe here on the forehead, and I can hit the G key. Whoop. I made a mistake here by grabbing some back verts. No. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I do that. I'm going to try to avoid grabbing corner verts or any of that kind of stuff. And I usually, the main thing that I try not to do if I'm using something like average vertices is I try not to do it too much or on too wide of a a surface. So, okay. All right, and I think that honestly, like, we're actually doing okay here. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this model real quick, go to Mesh Display and Soften. And obviously there's a few edits we could make. I think her head does look like it's a little bulbous on the front. So we can also start making some edits if we wanted to using soft selection. So if I, for example, like grab this edge here, or this vert here, I can open up my tool settings. So I can go to click on the little icon that shows the tool settings. I'm going to dock this here so I have it. I'm going to go to soft selection, turn on soft select, and default is usually pretty okay. I can just adjust the radius, for example, and I could say like grab, you know, like a chunk here, and then I can just kind of shift, you know, the overall shape of the head without having too much effect over the overall the rest of the piece. So you want to be careful with that. Like, for example, I want to close this gap that I accidentally created. I'm going to turn off soft select. I'm going to type in 0 on X, make sure that that's good. But then if I want to say, like, it looks like it kind of moves inward here, I can turn on soft select, reduce the radius a little bit, and I can just kind of like shift that out so that it gets more of a better look to it. And the higher soft selection amounts will have less of an overall impact on specific aspects of the shape, and it will sort of be pulling more generally. And we'll make some additional edits once we've combined the two sides together. So, but for right now, I think that'll be okay. So let's go ahead and let's actually just finish basically like the we'll do the bust, so like the whole basically the neck and the top part of the torso leading into the shirt. We'll do the hair. We'll get basically kind of what's called a mouth bag. Then we'll go through and we'll do the rest of the body. But I think that's a good starting point for this head piece. So we've got a decent kind of checkpoint here. Really, what I want to do, I just want to wrap this up so that it looks pretty solid. Then we'll just move on in the next video. So, okay, cool, guys. Well, thanks for watching so far. Hope you enjoy. We'll come back in a little bit for the next part.